Welcome back. So in part 1, we covered how the Jade Tigers attacked a pregnant Amaka and her baby, while her Jin fights with his men to protect his family. Before we proceed, if you're new here, please hit the subscribe button and comment where you're watching from. Now let's dive into what happened next. Jinwoo came down to get me personally. He had blood on his shirt, not his, but he was unharmed. "It's over," he said.
It's over. We got
them all. All, I whispered. "How many?" "7, he said flatly. "They're dead. You're safe." I should have been horrified. Instead, I felt grateful. What did that say about me? "We can't stay here," Jinwoo continued. "They know this location. I'm taking you to Korea. My family's compound. It's the most secure place in the world." "Korea," I said. "But I don't speak Korean. I don't know anyone there, my doctor." "I'll get you the best doctors in Korea," Jinwoo interrupted. "I'll hire English-speaking staff. Whatever you need. But Amaka, I can't protect you here. Not anymore. Too many variables, too much space. In Korea, in my territory, you'll be safe." I wanted to argue, to fight, to insist on some control over my life. But I was exhausted, terrified, and growing another human. "Okay," I said. "But I want something in return. Anything. I want you to start the process of getting out," I said firmly. "Legitimizing the businesses, ending the criminal operations. I won't raise our son in a world where people try to kill us." Jinwoo was quiet for a long moment. "That will take time. Years, maybe." "Then start now," I said. "Or I walk away the moment our son is safe, and you'll never see either of us again." It was a bluff. I had nowhere to go, no way to protect myself or the baby without him. But something in my tone must have convinced him I meant it. "Okay," Jinwoo said. "I'll start the transition. For you. For our son." 2 days later, I was on another private jet, this time crossing the Pacific. Jinwoo sat beside me the entire flight, and I slept with my head on his shoulder, too tired to maintain walls anymore. Korea was different this time. I didn't see the tourist areas or the hotels. I was driven directly to a massive compound in the mountains outside Seoul. It looked like a small village, traditional Korean buildings surrounded by modern security. "This has been my family's home for 3 generations," Jinwoo explained as we drove through the gates. "You'll meet everyone tonight. Fair warning. My mother is traditional. She may not be warm at first." That was an understatement. Jinwoo's mother, Mrs. Choi, was a tiny woman in her 60s who looked at me like I was an interesting insect. The entire family gathered for dinner. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all speaking rapid Korean. Jinwoo translated when necessary, but I felt completely out of place. After dinner, Mrs. Choi asked to speak with me privately. Through a translator, she said, "You carry my grandson. That makes you important to this family. But you are not Korean, you do not understand our ways. Jinwoo says he will leave the organization for you. This would destroy him." "With respect," I said, looking her in the eye, "I think staying in the organization will destroy him. I'm offering him a chance at a different life." She studied me for a long moment. "You love my son?" I hesitated. "I'm starting to." She nodded slowly. "Then perhaps you are strong enough. For this family after all." The next months were surreal. I adapted to life in Korea, learned basic Korean phrases, understood the family dynamics. Jinwoo was true to his word. He began the process of legitimizing the businesses. It caused tension. Some family members accused him of betraying their legacy, but he held firm. And slowly, somewhere between Lama's classes in Korean and late-night talks about our future, I fell in love with him. Not the dangerous mafia boss, but the man who brought me ginger tea when I had morning sickness. The man who read parenting books in English and Korean. The man who talked to my belly every night, promising our son a better world. At 32 weeks, during a routine ultrasound, the doctor's face changed. "What is it?" I asked immediately, fear spiking. The baby's heartbeat is irregular, she said, and your blood pressure is dangerously high. We need to monitor you closely. I was put on immediate bed rest. Jinwoo barely left my side. But 2 days later, I woke up at 3 in the morning with severe pain. Jinwoo, I gasped. Something's wrong. He was up instantly calling for the doctor for the car. My blood pressure had spiked critically. The baby was in distress. We need to deliver now, the doctor said. Emergency C-section. I was only 32 weeks. My baby wasn't ready. Is he going to be okay? I asked, tears streaming down my face. We'll do everything we can, the doctor promised. They rushed me to the private hospital wing of the compound. Jinwoo held my hand the entire time, even when they prepped me for surgery. I'm scared, I whispered as they wheeled me into the operating room. He leaned down, kissed my forehead. You're the strongest person I know, Amaka. You've survived everything life threw at you. You'll survive this. And our son will too. The surgery was a blur of bright lights in medical Korean I couldn't understand. But then I heard it. A cry. Small, weak, but there. He's here, the doctor said, holding up a tiny wrinkled baby. Your son is here. They took him immediately to the NICU. His lungs weren't fully developed. But he was alive. Jinwoo was allowed to visit first. When he came back to my recovery room, there were tears on his face. He's so small, Jinwoo said, his voice breaking. But he's perfect, Amaka. He has your nose, your mouth. He's perfect. For 2 weeks, our son, we named him Elijah David Choi, stayed in the NICU. Every day I sat beside his incubator, talking to him, singing to him, willing him to get stronger. Jinwoo sat with me, his hand always on mine or on the incubator, connected to his son. I've made a decision, Jinwoo said one night as we watched Elijah sleep. I'm stepping down. Not gradually. Immediately. My cousin will take over operations, and I'll transition everything to legitimate businesses within 2 years. I looked at him in shock. Jinwoo, that's dangerous. The people who opposed you before will have to accept it, he said firmly. Because I realized something watching our son fight to breathe. Power means nothing if I'm not here to see him grow up. Money means nothing if I'm too busy running an empire to be his father. You and Elijah? You're my empire now. Nothing else matters. 2 weeks after Elijah was born, the doctor said he was strong enough to come home. I held my son for the first time without wires and tubes, and something inside me healed. All those years of trying, of failing, of grief, they led me here, to this tiny miracle, to this unexpected family. 6 months later, I started feeling sick again. The familiar nausea, the exhaustion. Not possible, I told Jinwoo. The doctor said the first pregnancy was a miracle. Lightning doesn't strike twice. But I took a test anyway. Positive. At the doctor's office, she looked at my chart in disbelief. Your hormone levels are normal, she said. Actually, they're excellent. It appears the first pregnancy somehow reset your reproductive system. It's rare, incredibly rare, but it happens. Your body healed itself. I sat there stunned. It wasn't just Jinwoo. It was me. My body had fixed itself. Jinwoo's reaction when I told him was pure joy. He picked me up, spun me around, laughing like I'd never heard him laugh. Another baby, he said. A brother or sister for Elijah. Are you sure you can handle 2? I teased. I can barely handle 1. We'll figure it out together, he said, pulling me close, just like we figured out everything else. Now, a year and a half after that night in Seoul, I sit in our home in the compound, watching Jinwoo play with Elijah, while I'm 7 months pregnant with our daughter. The organization has been legitimized. Jinwoo runs a successful import business, legal this time, and works from home most days. We're not perfect. We still fight about his overprotectiveness, about my stubbornness, about how to raise our children. But we're happy. Genuinely happy. My family has accepted Jinwoo, even my mother, who was initially horrified that I was with a former criminal. They visit us in Korea twice a year. I never returned to that doctor in Boston who told me I'd never be a mother. But I sometimes think about what I tell her now. That miracles are real. That sometimes they come from the most unexpected places. That the man you meet in a hotel bar might change your entire life. That infertility isn't always forever. That hope, even when it seems impossible, is worth holding on to. But here's the thing nobody tells you about miracles. They're complicated. They come with challenges you never expected. Last month, we were having dinner with Jinwoo's family when his uncle asked when Elijah would start learning the family business. Jinwoo's response was immediate and firm. He won't. He'll learn legitimate business, and when he's old enough, he'll choose his own path. The table went silent. His uncle's face hardened. You're raising him soft, making him weak. I'm raising him free, Jinwoo replied calmly. Something I never was. That's not weakness. That's strength. Later that night, Jinwoo came to our room and sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. Did I make a mistake? He asked quietly. Leaving everything behind? What if my family is right? What if I'm making Elijah vulnerable? I sat up, took his face in my hands. You're making him human. You're giving him what you never had, a choice. That's not a mistake. That's love. But the reality is we can't completely escape Jinwoo's past. There are still people who remember who he was. Still rivals who see our children as potential leverage. Even though Jinwoo is out of the game, security is still tight. Our children will grow up with bodyguards, with protocols, with a level of caution most kids never need. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice bringing children into this world. But then Elijah laughs at something his father does, or I feel our daughter kick inside me, and I know that despite everything, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. There's something else I haven't told many people. Something that happened 3 months ago that changed everything again. I was going through some of Jinwoo's old papers, documents from when he was transitioning the business. I found photographs, surveillance photos, of me, from before we met in Seoul. There were pictures of me at the conference, yes, but there were also pictures from Boston, from weeks before I ever went to Korea. Pictures of me leaving my apartment at the coffee shop at the fertility clinic. My hand shook as I confronted Jinwoo that night. How long were you watching me? He didn't lie, didn't make excuses. 6 weeks before Seoul, he admitted. I was in Boston for business meetings. Saw you at a restaurant where I was having dinner. You were alone reading a book and something about you. I couldn't look away. I had someone find out who you were. You stalked me, I said, feeling violated despite everything we'd built together. Yes, he said simply, and I'm not going to apologize for it because it led me to you. But I understand if you can't forgive it. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to feel betrayed. But the truth was more complicated. Did you know about my infertility before that night? I asked. Yes, he admitted. It was in the background check. So when I told you at dinner, you were pretending to hear it for the first time. No, Jinwoo said firmly. I knew the facts. But hearing you tell it, hearing the pain in your voice, understanding what it meant to you, that was real. That moment was real. I sat with this information for days. Talked to a therapist, yes, even the wife of a former mafia boss needs therapy. Tried to reconcile the man I loved with the man who had invaded my privacy so completely. In the end, I decided that life isn't black and white. Jinwoo's methods were wrong. The surveillance, the manipulation of our first meeting, even if the wine spill itself was accidental. But his feelings were real. Our family is real. And I couldn't undo it even if I wanted to. I forgive you, I told him finally. But no more secrets. Ever. About anything. No more secrets, he promised. You have my word. 2 weeks ago, something happened that tested that promise. Jinwoo came home early from work, his face pale. We need to talk, he said, and my heart dropped. What is it? Is someone in danger? The kids. No, nothing like that, he said quickly. It's about your infertility, about why you got pregnant. He handed me a folder. Inside were medical reports, scientific papers, documents I didn't fully understand. I had a specialist look into your medical history, Jinwoo explained. I needed to understand how you got pregnant when doctors said it was impossible. I needed to know if our daughter was at risk of the same issues. And I prompted, scanning the papers. The specialist found something in your original diagnosis. You were misdiagnosed MAFIA. You never had severe endometriosis or diminished ovarian reserve. You had a hormonal imbalance that mimicked those conditions. It was treatable. It was always treatable. The room spun. What are you saying? I'm saying those doctors in Boston were wrong, Jinwoo said gently. You could have gotten pregnant years ago with proper treatment. The infertility you suffered through, the divorce, all of it didn't have to happen. I couldn't breathe. 9 years of my life. 9 years of pain, of trying, of failing. My marriage ended. My entire identity shaped by something that wasn't even real. I want you to know I've already contacted lawyers, Jinwoo continued. Those doctors committed medical malpractice. We can sue them, make them pay for what they put you through. But I barely heard him. I was thinking about all those years. All that grief. For nothing. Amaka, Jinwoo said softly, kneeling in front of me. I know this is devastating, but look at what you have now. Elijah, our daughter on the way, us. Would you have any of this if things had been different? It was a question I couldn't answer. If I'd been properly diagnosed, I might still be married to my ex-husband. I might have kids with him. I never would have gone to Seoul. Never would have met Jinwoo. Never would have had Elijah or this baby girl. I don't know how to feel, I admitted. I'm angry, but I'm also grateful. I'm devastated, but I'm also happy. How can I feel all of this at once? Because life is complicated, Jinwoo said. Because sometimes the worst things lead to the best things. Because you're human. We decided not to sue. What would be the point? Money wouldn't give me back those years. And pursuing it would mean reliving all that pain. Instead, I wrote a letter to Dr. Patterson, detailing the misdiagnosis and how it affected my life. I never sent it, but writing it helped. I forgave her, forgave myself, forgave the universe for the twisted path that led me here. Now, as I feel our daughter kick, as I watch Elijah play with his father, I realize something important. My story isn't just about infertility or falling for a dangerous man or finding an unexpected family. It's about resilience. It's about how we survive the things we think will destroy us. It's about how miracles often come wrapped in complications. The other day, Elijah asked me a question in his limited 2-year-old vocabulary. Mama, why we have big walls? He was talking about the compound security. Jinwoo and I exchanged looks. How do you explain to a toddler that the world can be dangerous? That his father used to live a life that still casts shadows? The walls keep us safe, I told him simply. But they also keep us together. Like a big hug. He seemed satisfied with that answer. But I know that as he gets older, the questions will get harder. He'll want to know about his father's past. About how his parents met. About why we have security when his friends don't. And I'll tell him the truth. That his father was a powerful man who made difficult choices. That I was a broken woman who learned she was never actually broken. That sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. That love is complicated and messy and worth fighting for. Jinwoo has been true to his word. The business is completely legitimate now. He works normal hours, comes home for dinner, reads bedtime stories to Elijah. Last week he showed me plans he'd drawn up. Remember when I told you I wanted to be an architect? He said. I've been taking classes online. These are designs for a community center in Seoul. Free programs for kids, art classes, music, sports. Everything I never had growing up. Jinwoo, this is beautiful. I said, looking at the detailed drawings. When did you have time to do all this? Late at night when you and Elijah are sleeping, he admitted. I couldn't sleep anyway. Too excited about the future. That's when I knew we'd made it. We'd survived his past, my trauma, the complications of merging two completely different worlds. We were building something new, something good. But I'd be lying if I said everything is perfect. Last month, one of Jinwoo's former associates was killed in a gang war. At the funeral, old members of the organization looked at Jinwoo with a mixture of respect and contempt. You abandoned us, one of them said. You chose a woman over family. Jinwoo's response was calm but firm. I chose my family over the organization. There's a difference. And I'd make the same choice every time. On the drive home, he was quiet. Do you ever regret it? I asked. Leaving that life? He thought for a moment. I regret that I can't protect them anymore. I regret that some of them will die young because that's the life they chose. But do I regret choosing you and our children? Never. Not for a single second. Our daughter was born 3 weeks ago. We named her Grace Sumin Choi. Grace because she's our second miracle. Sumin because Jinwoo's mother chose her Korean name. A gesture of acceptance I never expected. The delivery was smooth this time. Full term, no complications. When they placed her in my arms, I looked at Jinwoo holding Elijah, both of them staring at Grace with pure wonder, and I thought about how far we'd come. From a wine-stained suit in a Seoul hotel bar to this moment. From believing I'd never be a mother to having 2 children. From thinking I'd be alone forever to having a partner who chose me over an empire. What are you thinking? Jinwoo asked, noticing my tears. That they told me I'd never have this, I said. That I believed them. That I almost gave up. I'm glad you didn't, he said softly. I'm glad you went to Seoul. I'm glad you spilled wine on my suit. I'm glad for every single moment that led us here. So here's what I want you to understand from my story. If you're struggling with infertility, with loss, with feeling broken, hear this. You are not defined by what your body can or cannot do. You are not less than because of a diagnosis. And sometimes medical professionals are wrong. Get second opinions. Get third opinions. Advocate for yourself. But also know that even if the diagnosis is correct, even if the thing you want most seems impossible, life has a way of surprising us. Your miracle might not look like mine. It might not involve a Korean mafia boss and a one-night stand that changed everything. But it will be yours, uniquely yours, and it will be worth the wait. If you're in a complicated relationship, if you're with someone whose past scares you, whose choices you don't always understand, ask yourself this. Are they trying to be better? Are they choosing you? Are they willing to change? Because people can change. Jinwoo is proof of that. But they have to want to change and they have to do the work. And if you're feeling lost, if you're in a foreign country, literally or metaphorically, if you're surrounded by walls you didn't choose and security measures you don't understand, remember this. Sometimes the things that feel like cages are actually protecting something precious. Sometimes the complications are worth it for what's at the center. Last night, I was feeding Grace at 3 in the morning. Jinwoo came in, having heard her cry, and sat with me in the darkness. I never told you this, he said quietly, but that night we met, I almost didn't go to the bar. I almost stayed home. One of my associates had been killed that day. I was in a dark place, questioning everything about my life. And then I saw you. And I spilled wine on you, I said with a tired smile. Best thing that ever happened to me, he replied. Well, second best. First best is right here. He gestured to Grace in my arms, to Elijah sleeping in his crib in the corner of our room because he still won't sleep alone. What do you think they'll say about us someday? I asked. Our kids when they're grown, when they know the whole story. Jinwoo was quiet for a moment. I think they'll say their parents loved them enough to change the world they were bringing them into. I think they'll say their mother was the strongest person they ever knew. And I think they'll forgive us for not being perfect. I hope so, I whispered. I hope we're giving them enough. We're giving them everything we have, Jinwoo said. That's all anyone can do. So that's my story. The infertile woman who met a Korean mafia boss and ended up with everything she never knew she needed. It's messy. It's complicated. It's not the fairy tale I dreamed of as a little girl. But it's mine. It's real. And I wouldn't change a single thing. Well, maybe I'd change the part where people tried to kill me. That was definitely not ideal. But everything else? The fear, the uncertainty, the cultural clashes, the complicated past, all of it was worth it for these quiet moments at 3 a.m. with my daughter in my arms and my reformed criminal sleeping in the chair beside me. If you've made it this far in the story, thank you for listening. Thank you for not judging. Thank you for understanding that life is rarely simple and love is rarely clean. We're all just doing our best with the cards we're dealt. Some of us just happen to be dealt cards that include Korean mafia bosses and miracle pregnancies. One more thing before I go. Remember how I said Jinwoo promised no more secrets? Well, he kept that promise. But I didn't. There's something I haven't told him yet. Something I found out this morning. The pregnancy test sitting in my bathroom drawer? It's positive again. Third time. Third miracle. I'm not even sure how to tell him. We've got a 2-year-old and a 3-week-old. We're exhausted. We're overwhelmed. And apparently my body has decided it's going to make up for all those years of not working by going into overdrive. But as I sit here watching the sun rise over the Korean mountains, listening to my family sleep, I realize something. This is what happiness looks like. Not perfect, not easy, but real, messy, beautiful, mine. So to everyone watching this, everyone struggling with their own battles, their own seemingly impossible situations, I want you to know miracles are real. They just don't always look like we expect them to. Sometimes they come in the form of spilled wine. Sometimes they come from the most dangerous places. Sometimes they completely turn our lives upside down. But they're worth it. Every single complicated, messy, beautiful moment. They're worth it. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share your own miracle stories in the comments. I read every single one. And remember, you're stronger than you think. Your story isn't over. Your miracle might be waiting in the most unexpected place. Mine was in a Seoul hotel bar. Where will yours be? Until next time, this is Amaka Choi signing off. And yes, I took his last name. That's a whole other story for another day. If you learned something, please hit the subscribe button.